Hi everyone, my name is Angelina Kariakina and I'm really excited to start this kitchen talk with the filmmakers, soup with the filmmakers. This time it is organized in a very symbolical group of the filmmakers for wonderful movies. Let me just present our participants this soup hour. Hi, Nino, Orjonikidze and Vano, Arsenishvili from The Tunnel. Hey guys.
Hi.
Hi. Ksenia Okhapkina, the author of The Immortal. Ksenia, hi.
Hi.
Maksim Shved, Pure Art. Hi, Maksim.
Hi. Hi.
And Oleksiy Radynski, Circulation. Hi there.
Hi.
Really happy to see you guys, and probably the most common question that is out there for the directors, for the filmmakers, and well, also probably for the audience about the fact participating in an online festival this time. We know that of course, your movies and your work was done for big screens, and it is very important to have this opportunity to watch the movie on a big screen. And the festival as well is a very specific event where you meet people, you talk to people, you interact. How do you feel about the fact this time that the festival is online? And how do you think it might change, if it might, in your opinion, the future of the filmmaking, documentary filmmaking industry? Maybe I'm just gonna ask first whoever comes on my mind. For example, Ksenia.
Yes, it's a very something new and something that I don't really like, because like it's a special thing when you watch the film on the big screen. And for example, when I edited in the editing room this film, all the shots were much shorter, so they were not more than 15 seconds. But when we checked it out on the big screen before the final cut, I realized that everything should be much longer, because it doesn't give the atmosphere. So actually it's totally different product what you get on a small screen, and from the artistic point it's very different. And I can't use the Zoom properly. And it's so hard to combine some virtual life and real one for me. So yeah, I don't know if it is good or bad. It's good that we still come together and show the films, but yeah, it's some new reality for me.
Thank you so much. Vano, are you struggling as well with the fact participating in an online festival?
In a way, yes, because of we try very hard to make a proper sound for our movie, so and it's done for the cinema, and unfortunately nobody, I don't know, maybe there will be some festivals that we can visit and show the films in the movies, but till now everything is online, and yeah, it was, the sound was, and the image as well, was not made for the small screens, but for big one. But yeah, the situation, we still enjoy to be on a festival somehow online as well.
Nino, do you feel that you are actually participating in a festival and that you sort of also communicate with the audience? Because in our online library, there's a limited times of views that people could watch your movie, The Tunnel, and it's already closed down. So pretty quickly people watched it, few hundreds of people watched it. So basically the screening is off. I mean, your cinema hall was full, virtual cinema hall. How do you feel about that?
It's actually great to at least at the distance to realize that people are interested in the movies. But of course, I do not have this sense that somebody is watching it, and it's frustrating. But at the same time, I think it's interesting and it's a challenge, and I hope it does not last for long. And it's kind of, I hope it's kind of exclusive experience that we are experiencing now, and we will continue differently. I hope it's not forever.
Thank you. Maxim, how about you, and how do you think it might affect the industry overall? The fact that not only docu-days, but I mean the docu-days are the pioneers here in Ukraine and probably among few big documentary film festivals. But overall, in the future, do you think it might affect the movie watching and screening and the whole industry?
I don't know if it affects the film industry, but it's for sure affects directors. I can put myself in the position of someone who is just having premiere online, and of course it's uncomparable with a real premiere in a cinema theater. So I think it also can evaluate, film industry can evaluate from this situation, because as we see, it's possible to make premieres online and even sell films online, as I watched yesterday in one of your soup. So I think it will give some ideas, but it's documentary is always about people. So communication, it's very important as for directors and even for industry. So I think I like its live, so I don't think we need to go to online. But on the other hand, it's a good situation because a lot of my friends and people all over the world can watch this film, of course illegally. I mean my film, but I see feedback from Poland, from other countries, and people writing me that they watch this film and they share their opinion. So for the other hand, it's quite good. Not for the producers, but for...
Yeah. I'm pretty sure, and I really hope that you will catch up on this offline experience, talking to the audience and screening the movie. But here in Ukraine, we are in a sort of privileged position because the movies are available in Ukraine only. And Oleksiy, as a participant and author, but also as a person who is living here in Ukraine, has this opportunity to watch lots of them, all of the movies that are there, and have this full experience of the festival online. Lyosha, how do you feel about the fact being screened online and just being on a festival online?
Well, first of all, I would like to really thank the team of the festival for this incredible effort of organizing actually 2 festivals instead of 1. So first, the offline festival was organized almost entirely. Yeah, and then in such a short time, they organized the online festival. So this is incredible, really. And yeah, from my experience, like first thing I noticed is that I feel that kind of maybe much more people have seen my film at this festival online compared to just judging from the feedback I get, compared to the number of people who would see the film in the cinema if the festival was in the cinema. Also, for me personally, I don't really feel this as a completely new situation because 99% maybe of the film I watch, I don't watch them at festivals, I watch them on my computer. Like that's the way I work. Yeah, so and now I watch even more of them. Yeah, so but this film that I made, actually probably for the first time I really made a film that was meant to be on the big screen, so it's a bit ironic. And anyway, I really hope that it only happens once. I really hope that it doesn't become a norm for the festivals, because then the festivals will kind of lose their reason to exist. I mean, if they go online.
Yeah,
I sorry, Ksenia, you wanted to add something.
No, I just wanted to agree, yeah, because it's could be a big problem for the festivals if they go online, because there are so many opportunities to watch films like on Netflix or on TV for the people, and they're more used to it. And festival is kind of a event for the people, and opportunity to go out and opportunity to discuss things, and it's more the community of the people, yes, and we are more strong when we come together like anytime. And so yeah, it's from my point, I agree it could be a problem.
I just wanted quickly to remind everyone who is watching us as well that 3 out of 4 movies are still available, and no matter if the movie is available or not, there's an opportunity to put a question to the filmmaker and then to get an answer. So there's also this hybrid form of communication, which is also pretty cool. You can very shortly ask a question with your webcam and then get an answer from the filmmaker. You can still use this option on the website docuspace.org. And talking about copyright, guys, of course, we understand that it's a special situation this time, and the movies are available in Ukraine only. But what we ask for everyone is that we are really responsible, and we instead of sharing something illegally, we just support and we ask to support the festival and the documentary filmmakers and donate any sum of money that you can. Going back to our symbolically organized group, actually, apart from the fact that the filmmakers are coming from post-Soviet countries and they reflect probably on the transformations in post-Soviet countries, they are completely different, and the title Dehumanized is very also symbolical. But I will probably ask all of you with how did you come up with the ideas of your movies? How did you come up with the protagonists? I mean, in some cases you do have protagonists, like in Maksim case, there's an artist, Zahar, and women who are interacting with him. But in the rest of the cases, I would say that the characters and the protagonists are pretty collective, and also the landscape is the protagonist. Anyway, how did you come up with the idea of the movie? Probably I'll ask this question first, Maksim.
Sound.
Yeah.
I was studying in film school in Poland, Wider Film School, and we were preparing the project there. And this film I started in this school, and I wanted to tell something about my country to the neighbors, to the Polish audience, as I was going to produce the film in Poland, because even our neighbors, I mean, even Russia and Ukraine and even more Poland, they don't know exactly what stands behind of this tag, the last dictatorship of Europe. So we know it from media, but what is like real life, it's in most cases unknown. So I wanted to make a kind of presentation, of course, through the methods of documentary film. So I came with this idea because this walls, the streets, this atmosphere of Minsk is quite symbolic, I should say. So talking about these walls and people who create this strange phenomenon, I was trying to tell about my country.
Mm-hmm. But how did you find these wonderful women who are actually, tearing down these graffitis and creating at the same time new way of new art on the walls of Minsk? How did you find them?
It was not really difficult to find them. I mean, that kind of woman work in any communal service in Minsk. I came to one, to next, and almost in everyone they were ready to be participating in the film. They just needed to ask permission of their chief, and that's why it's documentary, because they are quite typical. It was not difficult to find them.
Thank you. Nino, your story unfolds in a secluded, far away village in Georgia. Was this story about the tunnel that is being constructed there by a Chinese corporation, was this story common? I mean, was it well known? It was covered on the news? Or how did you come up with the idea of covering specifically this village and this situation with the construction?
When we started, it was not absolutely about tunnel. We had no idea there was this idea of constructing a tunnel. Actually, we just started our journey, me and Vano, how we usually do it when we are kind of trying to experience the reality which is around us. So we just went off-road in the Immortal region, because there is no normal road there. Only train goes through this gorge until now. Now there is a construction of the highway, but through this gorge there is only this train line which was built during 19th century, and therefore the whole gorge situation is very authentic. And when we traveled there, we were really fascinated with the whole setting and this old railway platform, and we just noticed several Chinese signs before it has all started, and that was very strange, because there were hardly any humans living there, and suddenly there were Chinese signs. And this is how we started, and we had no idea it all will end up like that. It just started like a snowball, like small thing, and then like a snowball, it just turned out to be like this big thing. But we never had this, it was never on our agenda just to make this film about New Silk Road, you know. It started as something where we were fascinated by the landscape and the atmosphere and situation, and then it took us to that direction.
Vano, it seems that the access to the both sides of the story, I mean the Chinese and the Georgian, was different. It was probably harder to have access to the Chinese workers and the way they live, and just take a look, you know, at their houses and at their community. How did you work with that?
So yeah, well, we find out that it was really impossible for us to get access to Chinese side, because they were calling to, I don't know, it was really hard to get access, and we decided to use it as an artistic approach to film them from where we were allowed to film them. So, and yeah, they are present in the film, but they are from distance. But that was the situation as well with the inhabitants of the villagers, because they never interact with them, because they're living in these camps. And yeah, it was then became our stylistic approach as well, to show them from the distance.
Thank you. Lyosha, your movie is quite special in this regard. I mean, in terms of protagonists and the storytelling. You research landscapes, cities for a long time. How did you come up with the idea of this specific movie, and how long did it take you to create a story out of it?
Yeah, it's actually a bit funny, because I just thought that my film is completely dehumanized, or dehumanizing even. Like, there are no humans in this film, almost no humans. And yeah, so I actually wanted to make a film without words and without humans, if possible, for quite a long time. And I wanted to make a film about the landscape of the city, Kiev. yeah, in its transformation as it unfolds. And just as a prehistory, so in Kiev, in our city, we have like a major transportation disaster, right? So transportation system basically doesn't work and is degrading like really to the point of collapse. And one of the pieces of infrastructure that we have here is this kind of urban railway, right? That goes in a circle around the city, and since some time it's being used as a transportation tool. But the thing is, it doesn't really work. Very few people use it. It's very inconvenient. So basically, it doesn't work as a transportation tool. And I thought maybe therefore it could be used to make at least some sense. It could be used as a tool for art, of film. So we started to use it, to use this railway as a dolly. Yeah, so the dolly is like a rail that makes camera movement possible in film. And so we installed the camera on this train, and we've been observing these landscapes that unfold in front of the camera for more or less exactly 3 years. Yeah.
Why so long? Why did it take you so long to do this movie? Were you looking after the change of the landscape, or when did you decide to stop shooting, and why?
Yeah, so it took some time because it's not just about the movement of the landscape. It's basically the landscape in transformation. So to basically be able to grasp this transformation, time is needed, and it's also a film about time. Yeah, so it's time that is condensed into just 10 minutes. It's a short film. Yeah, and it's been an open-ended process. So when we started the process, it was hard to say what exactly would be the outcome. It was an open-ended process and pretty much a self-produced film. Yeah, and it ended where it ended. It can actually, it may not end.
Well, the circulation.
It doesn't have an.
Yeah, the circle doesn't have an end. Ksenia, I have so many questions about your movie, and how did you come up with the idea to travel specifically to this city with the wonderful name of Apatiti, but not only the city, not only the place of the former Gulag and a very, very far away and cold and dark place is the protagonist, but also the people who are in the story, who are joining this young army, Yun Armia, which is also common not only for this far away place, but also as we were watching the occupation of Crimea and what is happening in Crimea, this tradition of Yun Armia is also a part of the militarization process in Crimea as well. So it's like something across the whole Russia. So how did you come up with both ideas, having these people in this specific place?
Yes, actually what I chose was the space first. And at first I had more question. So this film started with the question of what is freedom? Because my parents were kind of dissidents, and they fought with the Soviet system. And, we had so much troubles because of this. And my question was, what was the reason to make it? And what is the freedom? And what does it mean not to be free? And I think that for the post-Soviet reality, the key element is the victims of this Stalin's building of the economy. Yes, because the huge economy and all the income was built on the not free labor, on slavery. Yes, there were a lot of people repressed, just not for. It was announced that it is political, but it wasn't. It was very practical, just to just to get the income from the free labor, which people would not do if they were not imprisoned. And if you look at such places like Apatite or many others, they are mostly in the north, and they are basically not made for living. So for the free will, nobody would go to live there. So it was first just my idea, and then you know, like I had a consultant who was a political prisoner also in the 80s, and who knows these territories, and who was in one of these prisons in the north, and he was also an archivist, and he suggested that we go to Apatite. Which is, you know, like there was, which was a very clear place for this idea, because there was no settlement on this territory before the labor camps appeared. And when we came, I started to monitor this place, and I realized that it is, you know, like nothing happens there except this work at the factory, and there is not much to do. And this house of culture there, it actually produces a lot. It is a kind of a space for propaganda mostly, but it is also a place where the children go in their free time. So when they finish school, they don't go to their families because their parents are always busy because they survive. They go to this house of culture and do some activities, and there, you know, like this state uses this situation to form the mind and form the values of these young girls and boys. And it's kind of an abusive thing, which I found. And, you know, like it's kind of a show, because I believe that these ideas, which were suggested to the people propagandistically in Soviet Union, they're quite artificial, and if you take part in it, you take part in kind of a show. So it also was the point to find kind of to make it, to have it on the stage. And then what we found immediately, I didn't know that I would have this young army. And when we started the research, there was no young army at all. There were these military clubs. So we started to film some rehearsal, and then just small boys with the armory came onto the stage. We didn't expect it, and all of this started. It's the beginning of the film, what we have. So it's the footage from the first research. And there was no young army, and there were these military clubs, and the young army appeared right before the main filming. And it's this movement started from the small towns like Apatite and from Crimea, because, you know, like in Russia, you know, like everything that all the propagandistic stuff that invented in Kremlin goes to Crimea now first. Yeah, unfortunately, because it's, you know, like, and they show it, and they, you know, like try to prove that
as
yes,
a training
it's part
field.
of Russia.
Yeah.
As a training field, it's kind of a cover, you know, like for these propagandistic experiments. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
By the way, Ksenia, we have a question from Volodymyr Khanas, who is watching us right now, who is really thankful for the movie, and he says that it could be also a handbook. But he says that in his opinion, there's a lot of shooting from behind, from the back, and it looks like a person is being, you know, that somebody is taking a person to be shot. This is a very interesting, yes, opinion. Have you ever thought about this? Our viewer asks.
About the feeling of being shot from the back.
That there is, you know, that a perspective from behind gives an impression that the person is led, you know, to be shot.
No, I didn't think about it. It was an intention. It made intention that we shoot from the backs. First, because of the stage, because of this rehearsal, because we find a good point when the show happening very propagandistic. If you shoot it from the front, then you will get this propaganda on the screen. But if you shoot it from the back, first you get a fantastic image of these girls and boys dancing like on the edge of the abyss, because it is totally dark behind. And second, you see the structure, how the show is made. And then we found this, that if you shoot the people from the backs on the bus stop, you don't really get this, you know, like, because when you shoot it in the faces, you see that people are tired, you can see their age, and it's interesting to observe, you know, like, who are they, which life they have. And it was totally not important. It was, you know, like, we wanted to shoot this state of standing, you know, like heroic standing, because it is heroic to go at 5 o'clock in the morning to the bus stop, and every day in the polar night. Yeah, it is. And so, and we understood that we have this image of the cosmic heroes when we shoot it from the back only. So it wasn't that, but I never thought that it's about the shoot. Though it's quite aggressive, I can agree, yes, because if you stay from the back, then people probably don't know that you shoot them. Though it's not like this usually.
Okay.
Usually everybody knows when they're being shot.
There's an opinion, yeah, from the viewer.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you very much. It's very interesting.
Yeah, I think he's listening to us. I'm talking about transformation. I really want to go to the tunnel and to Georgia, and to ask you guys about transformation in Georgia, and about the way Georgian reforms are presented in Ukraine, you know, as sort of a showcase for the whole post-Soviet community, that especially here in Ukraine for some time, Georgia was this, you know, showcase, with the politicians also coming to Ukraine, with the recent almost appointment of Saakashvili, which didn't happen now, but it might happen later on some other positions. He, just for those who is hearing it for the first time, last week Saakashvili was just about to be appointed as a vice prime minister on reforms. But now the question is out of the table because there are probably no votes in the parliament, and there is a lot of controversy around that. But anyway, the picture that we see and the situation that we see in your movie, Georgia, that we see in your movie with this village is completely different. Why is that?
Well, I don't think that it's necessarily the picture we depict in our film can be like the picture of the whole Georgia, or like everybody in Georgia sees things that are happening in Georgia this way. It may be different, but at least me and Vano, this is how we see it. And it can be very subjective, but we are absolutely fair from our perspective how we represent things. So for me, like, this village is actually really kind of really on microcosmic level depicts the situation of Georgia in a way. And also the fact that very often reforms or promises about reforms have kind of very facade nature, and in reality or on ordinary people's level it has some effect. So meaning that not always people like me or just ordinary people on grassroots level are considered while making decisions in big politics. And this is what I think in a way our film is about. But of course it does not necessarily mean that it reflects the position of all Georgians, because Georgia is also very polarized in that sense. But
Sure,
yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Vano, there is also a feeling that this specific village is sort of, cut out of the picture of this big and big liberal transformation. Because if you take a look at the conditions in which these people are working, I'm talking specifically about this workers. It gives a different, different view on the situation in which people are living. How life has transformed for this specific village over the years in Georgia, and what really changed for them, and what probably is really hard to change in the future.
For this village, I mean, there is a scene in a movie when they have the opportunity to get the money for the village, and the village decide to spend it on the graveyard, and it's kind of symbolic as well, because for my view, they didn't see the big future in the village. They see they are talking more and thinking more in the past. So, like things are changing. These big infrastructural projects are changing many things in the villages, but they don't really feel it. But they have, like, in the same time, hope and fear at the same time that something will change and affect them. But they never know would it be in a positive way or in negative way. And there are some kind of because unfortunately officials cannot really provide information what will happen with them. And that is the problem in this village, I think. And that's why they're spending all the money they get for the past, so to say, in symbolic way.
Thank you, Vano. Maksim, you were starting with a point saying that. Sorry if I if I will change the wording, but if I understand you correctly, that this sort of Soviet tradition never really left Belarus, and it's out there. But Belarus also transformed a lot for the past, especially 6 years. Also, in political and geopolitical understanding, and in the context of the Russian aggression and war in Ukraine. This new role of Minsk as a center between Ukraine and Russia, logistical and political as well. How do you feel, about this specific transformation? Can you really feel it in Minsk? While these women are working with these images, is it really out there, or it's just a separate story which is really hard to grasp, being, a Belarusian and living in Minsk?
Complicated question. As a citizen, I will not say that it's a big transformation we feel for 6 years or for 20 years. We have the same president. He is a very Sovietic style man, and you said that Belarus may change from the point of view that it becomes a land of conversation, but it's only political, global political maybe situation changes. So Belarus is associated with something, is a place where you can meet and communicate. But for us, for citizens, there is no change. You see, we are preparing for the Victory Day. All the world is in quarantine, but we still have this celebration.
So you will be having a parade in Minsk, a full
yes,
military
yes,
parade.
we are going.
Wow.
Yes, yes. So we are going to hold it, and for me it's very like symbolic. It says a lot about us. That's why I also wanted to show these celebrations in my film. It's like you can see it like a very strange celebration. You don't know what are celebrating actually, but it's like day from day. Actually, this woman from communal service, they have mostly their job covering up these slogans before the celebrations. So I would not say that Belarus is transforms. Of course, we live in a global world and we can stand of transformation, but I think the most important people's mind are still very, very Soviet. And it's not only about president. On the other hand, we have what we have.
Thank you. Yeah.
It's very interesting because in Minsk I come there quite often because we have relatives there, and in the whole Belarus I noticed that there were after the Second War it was so much destroyed that the previous cultures which were very rich there, you can't really see them in the landscape. And what you can see in Minsk, which is very important, that the space is filled with this Soviet culture, and like something that naturally suggested to the people, because you can rarely find some buildings or spaces which are not Soviet, and which is beautifully filmed in Maksim's film.
Maksim, by the way, we have a comment from Bogdana Stelmach, who is thanking you for the movie, and she says that she was amazed by how few people are there on the streets, how few people, not too many, and that they look frightened. And she says that she feels like she went back to Soviet past. So with the quarantine, which is not there in Belarus, the same amount of people on the streets, I can assume, yes?
I think more people now closer to the nature, to lakes or rivers, but Minsk seems a little abandoned even in a normal situation. So now it's also quite not few people, but it's not about people, it's even more about streets, because they were built very wide. Minsk was built after the Second World War. It was totally destroyed, and it was built like kind of utopia, like a city of sun. From the one hand, from the other hand, the city which can very quickly evacuate in the situation of war. So that's why the streets are very wide. And on these wide streets, the person sometimes can be lost.
Sorry, go ahead.
What I also wanted to say is that we live now in a strange situation, not transformation, but between time and, how to say, we live between Europe and Russia, yes, and between past, let's say, Soviet past and a capitalistic future. So this transformation for us is quite difficult in this political and geological situation we have.
Thank you. Quickly, just a quick remark about broad streets, wide streets. My personal feeling was that when you get into the street, I think probably it's my past of an activist or a person who has lived through 2 revolutions, is taking a look where you can hide from the police, but there is no place you can hide from the police. In Minsk, it's just a broad, a very wide street, a prospect where you can only, I don't know, run probably. Ksenia, there's a question Yeah, Maksim, sorry, you had something to say.
And we have much more police. It's like one of the how to say, the biggest quantity of police per person in the whole Europe. I don't know the exact quantity, but for 1,000 people, I think it's one policeman. So it's difficult to hide from them. They are everywhere.
Ksenia, there's a question to you about your personal attitude to the young characters that you portrayed. Do you think military aggressive atmosphere in Russia is immortal? It's a question from Dmitro Shulha.
Yes, thank you, Dmitro, for the question. Actually, the thing is, and yesterday we discussed it on Svoboda Radio. Actually, the thing is that the war for Russian citizens, especially who don't live on the borders, is kind of a video game. So what I filmed and what I noticed in this process in St. Petersburg, Moscow, and in Apatite is that people don't really know what the war is, and for these children which we filmed, it is more like the substitute for the family and more like a video game. Because if you see the last Russian wars, it was in Afghanistan, in Chechnya, now in Ukraine, in Syria, then it's something very far from us and something which is showed on the TV, and it is showed from this, and it then comes the ideology of that we won in the Second World War and we are kind of the nation of the winners. And it is all, like suggested that for the youngsters that they take part in some game in which they win. For sure, probably they should pay some price, but like in Russia, people don't know what the war is. They don't know that it is blood, that it smells, that it can be really disgusting, and like that dying for the big idea is usually not a pleasant thing, and it's really hard, and you take also you have to kill people, which is also really hard, and they are like usual youngsters like in Ukraine or like in Europe, like anywhere in the world, they just lack the attention and family love. And there they get it, and the feeling of, like being in the community. And I can't name this aggression. The aggression comes from the Russian politicians, which is very practical also. And for these guys, it's more like the video game, and I feel more sorry for them than and I think people should feel more sorry for them than scary, because they are, like normal youngsters who don't know in what kind of the reality this old show takes them, and it is scary, but I would not name this aggression that it's aggression from the side of the youngsters. It's for sure aggression from the side of politicians more.
Yes, but you also have this episode with the cemetery that you show also in one part of the film, like not probably in this linear way, a way where you get, a place where you get after you come back from war, but really makes you think about who is there on that cemetery and why so many graves of the men who are not so old, actually. A question to Lyosha about transformations in Kiev that we see. You offer, there is no answer. You offer a picture in which we can actually sit down and reflect on what is happening to Kiev over these 3 years. But these 3 years, they brought lots of change. Not even 3. Probably 6 years. They brought lots of change to the city, and they brought lots of change to the country as well. What is your view? I mean, what in your view is happening to Kiev?
Thanks a lot for this question. Yeah, I think it's strangely easy to answer. I think that a very kind of briefly put, what we have in Kiev is a kind of dictatorship, but it's not the kind of dictatorship that we know from the past. It's a dictatorship of money. I would say that in the last 6 years, Kiev is undergoing a process of extreme destruction and extreme degradation as a city. I think very soon we will not be able to even call this place a city, because a city in the human society is a place for coexistence of humans, like mostly, and other species maybe. But what we during the last 6 years, I'm stressing that this process is happening under the mayorship of the former boxer who is pretending to be a mayor now, but he is actually an agent of the capital of the developers, right? And he has subjected all of the policies of the city and all of the processes that happen in this city to the interests of his cronies, yeah, to a completely unprecedented extent. And what makes the situation even more sad is that this is happening at the expense and kind of owing to the extreme weakness of civic movements. And the reason for this is obviously war. So many activists and civic movements have been drained by the war effort, that the issues of the city and the urban movements that were very strong in Kiev some time ago became extremely weak. I think that this process of destruction of the city that we are witnessing is happening because the mayor and his cronies are cynically exploiting this situation of burnout and of extreme weakness of civic movements in the city. Mm-hmm. This is what's happening.
Losha, I wanted also to ask you also a question about the so-called policy of decommunization, because lots of monuments, lots of buildings with the Soviet mosaics, constructivists, monuments and buildings are being torn down from the face of the city. It is also a process that really changes the city a lot, apart from the one that you just described. What is left there? I mean, it's a sort of eclectic picture where you still have, you know, this old Soviet monuments, but at the same time you are not really allowed to have them, and they stand there in a way, you know, waiting for them to being torn down. How decommunization, or the decommunization which was at least in active progress some time ago, changed the city?
Yeah, thanks for asking this question. Actually, when I actually read the proposal of this talk, I was a bit confused in the beginning, especially by the decommunization part, and I couldn't get my head around like what are we going to talk about. But then I talked to the festival team, and I felt that they were kind of a bit confused by this topic as well. And then I thought that this is basically the problem. I think that the decommunization, as we have here in Ukraine at least, is a result of confusion itself, or it's actually, I would say, a distraction and the result of kind of ideological manipulation. Because the problem with decommunization is that obviously for the last 30 years at least, we don't suffer under communism. We suffer under capitalism, right? And we are being dehumanized by the capitalist order, right? And the solution to this problem that's offered by the so-called decommunization says, okay, let's have even more capitalism, and let's have it in a way that's even more hardcore and even more dehumanizing. And let's blame all the sins of this situation and all the sins of this capitalist order on the corpse of the regime that is actually kind of gone 30 years ago. Yeah, and it's actually a distraction, and also this kind of spectacle of dehumanization that resulted in the removal and into kind of quite vandalistic destruction of hundreds and hundreds of really good artworks apart from just ideological stuff. Yeah, it's actually a spectacle of destruction to kind of, you know, to divide the opinion of the people, to kind of introduce confusion and conflict, because even though in the mainstream media it may seem that everyone is so happy for these artworks and monuments to be destroyed, in fact I have a strong feeling, and I know that in the society there's a huge disagreement about this process. But the aim of the spectacle is basically just to make privatization of everything that's not privatized yet go more smoothly. Yeah.
Sorry, Milosz, I have to interrupt you because we have only 5 minutes left, and this hour was just so quick, and the movies are so different, and the contexts are so different, and you really want to hear everyone. But I want to take this 5 minutes for two things. Maybe, well, you've exchanged the links between the filmmakers. Maybe you have some questions that you would like to put to each other, so you can take this time and ask each other something you really wanted to discuss as well. If not, we can just move forward to the next question. But if you do have, go ahead. Okay, then
I just wanted to thank everybody because I watched all the films, and I want to thank Oleksiy because it's a very good short piece of art, and something very common to what I felt about Apatity, what you filmed in Kyiv, these industrial landscapes, and Nino and Vano for a fantastic story, very surprising one, full of mythology and beautiful pictures, and Maksim knows that I love his film. Yeah, and I think it's actually a good program and good discussion because, you know, like you can see on this there's totally different stories, very unique, and all connected with this kind of industrialization and some ideology which is not connected with the real human life, actually, at the places we live in. So I think it's very good, and thank you guys for the films.
Maybe someone else also had some feedback or a question to your colleagues, because we, you know, during a festival, you would also use this time drinking wine or having parties and talking to each other, so you can really take this opportunity and ask or say something to each other.
Oh, I mean, same here. We really enjoyed, like yesterday we watched some parts of the movies, and I had a chance to heard about Ksenia's movie much earlier, and we were really fascinated with the approach, and we can all somehow relate to, although the movies are very different, we can all relate to the situation. And I also very much enjoyed the film I watched yesterday from Belarus. And again, although situations are really different, I would say now, but I can relate coming from the Soviet past. So thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you guys so much. I think it was a wonderful kitchen hour. The topics are probably suited more for a proper dinner, not for a lunch. And we really hope that we will see you one day all in Kyiv, and you are really welcome to come. So once again, I will probably ask our viewers that you can still watch movies by Ksenia Okhapkina, Immortal, Oleksiy Radynski, Circulation, and Maksim, Shved, Pure Art, while Nino's and Vano's movie, The Tunnel, is not available anymore, but I'm pretty sure well, first of all, you can still ask a question if you already watched the movie, but you can also follow, and I really hope that we will be able to see the movie also on a big screen. Thank you all once again. Stay healthy, stay safe, and we really hope that we will get this opportunity to travel very soon and see each other.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
До побачення.